How's it going, everybody? Matt here. Thanks so much for checking out this video. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Captain America Brave New World. Now, Captain America Brave New World is a new film that came out just over the past weekend, and it stars Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford. Now, with Anthony Mackie, he is taking on the role of Captain America from Chris Evans' Steve Rogers role in the MCU. We went through about 8 to 9 years of seeing Steve Rogers as Captain America, seeing Chris Evans in this role, and technically this is the first time in the MCU where a mantle has technically been passed on to someone. Yes, there have been new roles that have kind of filled shoes, so, you know, with Iron Man, there's Ironheart, with Hulk, there's She-Hulk, with Hawkeye, there's the new Hawkeye. So there has been a lot of, you know, passing the torch, but this is the first time where the actual name and the actual mantle, like Captain America, has been passed on to a former character. There was a Disney Plus show called Falcon and the Winter Soldier that did kind of act as a prelude to this movie, but with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that was essentially just like an origin story for Sam Wilson taking on the mantle as Captain America. But really, this does act as a finale per se, maybe a conclusion to that story. So let's go ahead and talk about my spoiler-free thoughts on Captain America Brave New World. Now, if you're like me and you follow a lot of the behind-the-scenes stories about the Marvel Universe, then you know that this movie went through some rewrites, it went through some reshoots, some recasting. There was a lot that changed from the initial phases of this movie to now. I was curious, how is the final product of this movie going to turn out? And of course, the initial reactions that came out about the movie were fairly mixed. Once the scores started debuting on sites like Rotten Tomatoes, really showed that there was a solid divide between critics and how they were feeling about the movie. Needless to say, that does set expectations kind of lower for you whenever critics are kind of half and half on this thing. Because they're half and half, that also meant that maybe I would enjoy it and I would be in the half that did like it. And although Captain America Brave New World is really far from a perfect movie, this is still an MCU movie that I enjoyed. And a couple of the highlights for this movie for me, first and foremost, Anthony Mackie. Now again, he's, you know, coming into this mantle, he's coming in from a role that someone was previously in for 8 to 9 years. One of the things I really hoped for going into Captain America Brave New World was that we were going to get to see, like, yes, it's still Captain America, but what is the difference between Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers? What are the skills that Sam has that maybe Steve Rogers did not have? I feel like the best character arc in the movie wasn't necessarily Sam Wilson's, but it did go to Harrison Ford as Thaddeus Ross. And all that to say, I feel like Harrison Ford's character was the one who had the most interesting and dynamic character arc in the film. And as you see, his role in the movie kind of shifts into him becoming another Hulk. Another thing I really enjoyed about this movie, and honestly, the opening scene did this super well for me, is setting a great tone. Now, Laura Cartman, she composed the score for this movie. And I think that was honestly one of the strongest pieces of this whole movie for me. And what she does really well, especially with establishing the tone, is it really sets up this paranoid political drama. Like I said, it gets really well established in the opening scene of this movie. And all that to say, yes, I did really enjoy the tone of this movie overall. Between Anthony Mackie, Harrison Ford, and the score, those are definitely the highlights of this movie for me. Now, the thing about Brave New World is that it kind of lines up with the same reviews and the same ratings as other previous Marvel projects such as Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and the Eternals. But the thing about this movie compared to those two is that this is a movie that I think I would rewatch more over those two. Not to say I wasn't crazy about those movies, but this movie just had a lot more for me that I was interested in and I enjoyed watching. And another highlight of this movie for me is the character of Isaiah Bradley. Now, this is a character that got introduced in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and although he doesn't have like a lot of screen time in this movie, his presence and his involvement is fairly important. Going into this movie, a lot of the reviews that I was seeing was that there wasn't really an emotional pack, an emotional punch in this movie. But Isaiah Bradley, there are a couple scenes in particular with him that really brought the emotional weight of this movie. As we were speaking earlier, I discussed that, you know, there was a lot of reshoots, there were a lot of rewrites, and at times in this movie, you do kind of feel that. You do kind of feel like that this movie is Frankenstein together in a way. One of the things that did end up changing throughout production, that changed in these reshoots and rewrites, was the addition of Giancarlo Esposito's character, Sidewinder, I think his name is. Yes, great actor, but there wasn't a lot going on with him. I feel like there were times in this movie where you could have written some of these characters out altogether and it wouldn't have really changed the plot. That was one of those characters that I feel like if you would have just not included him in the story at all, it really wouldn't have had a big impact on the plot. One of my other critiques of this movie is that, you know, it kind of felt like it wasn't necessarily a Captain America story. Although Sam Wilson did have a great role, even though Sam Wilson did have great involvement in the story, there were times that I felt like I couldn't help but think that this was just kind of trying to wrap up loose ends in previous Marvel projects. Yes, it felt like at times it was trying to complete story threads in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, also trying to complete threads in The Incredible Hulk, also just trying to tie in the Eternals. And I think just another critique about this movie that honestly just kind of bothered me overall, I felt like some of the coolest moments that we actually got to see between the Hulk and Sam Wilson fighting were very much involved in the marketing. Did I enjoy Captain America Brave New World overall? I did, and I think it honestly would be another rewatch for me. Still a movie for me that kept me engaged, it kept me interested. Even though it wasn't perfect, I would say it was far from being the worst MCU movie and far from being a terrible movie, honestly. What are your thoughts? Did you get to see Captain America Brave New World this past weekend? Did you enjoy it? Did you feel like you were let down? Comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and as always, thanks so much for checking out this video. And if you can, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll see you guys next time.